So you're
I've got my
feeling
fun sick
okay?
voice.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
have.
just
Well,
still
it
still
could
tired.
it could be kind of sexy for some of our listeners.
That's right. That's right. My Barry
Yeah,
White voice.
that. I love it.
Hey, baby.
Okay.
Hello, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I am Michael Gray.
And I am Erin Green, here
Hello.
with Barry White.
I was just telling Erin before we started recording that I had the flu last week, and my voice is still somewhat affected, all gravelly and raspy, and hopefully I don't cough up along, while we're recording here.
I do think some of our listeners will like this deep voiced,
maybe let us know, and if so, I'll just maybe every month before we record, I'll just scream a whole bunch the day before.
Lick a handrail or a doorknob, make sure you get good and sick before you.
Well, I do that anyway, just my weird little kinks.
Yeah, don't wash your hands.
No. How's it going?
Not bad. Not bad. Kind of busy the week before Thanksgiving, I mean, I know this is going to be released in December, so we'll be long past Thanksgiving, but right now it's the week before Thanksgiving, and it just feels like everybody is trying to cram everything in before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. It's weird how busy it starts to feel, right? Sometimes I don't even know why. It's hard to pinpoint. It's just I don't know. It just feels busier.
Yeah.
Yeah, this time of year.
Yeah, I think I had evening obligations every day this week, which is really bizarre. I mean, I might have busy weeks where I have 3 days out of the week where I'm doing something in the evening, but this was and one night I had 2 things. So I had to go from one straight to the next. And it just was it felt like the holiday season is starting. So
yeah, here we go.
We might talk about that.
Speaking of which,
you know what would be a really nice Christmas gift for Michael and I, listeners?
Do tell.
Michael doesn't even know what he wants for Christmas, so I'm telling him what he wants. So if you were, you're going to take it, you're going to like it.
That's right.
Listeners, if you enjoy our podcast and if you are a loyal listener, first of all, we thank you so much because it's been super fun. And we always love hearing when people are like, oh yeah, I heard this on your podcast, or I listened to this episode and it was really great. Please share it with a friend. And I don't care if it's through social media, if you text the episode link to somebody and they discover us and they're like, wow, this was really helpful, or I really enjoyed this conversation, or it made me laugh. It kind of brightened up my afternoon walk. Whatever the purpose is for sharing this with other people, please share it. And while you're at it, please leave us a review. Let us know that you like what you hear. Or if you think we're missing the mark and you don't like what you hear, we take suggestions. Let us know.
Absolutely. We're coachable.
Yeah, we are coachable.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I don't know if you're in podcasting at all, you realize how important that stuff is. If you're not, it may seem like a silly, unimportant thing, but really, a personal recommendation from somebody is really the best endorsement you can get. And if someone from a friend or a family member hears hey, I think this is really good, I think you'd like it, very high chance that they're going to check it out. And of course, if they check it out, they're going to love it because we're just doing awesome stuff.
I know.
Yeah. But yeah, and those reviews and ratings on, iTunes or whatever, they really do mean a lot and go a long way. So that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks for listening. Right. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for listening. Yeah.
We have a show for you today. Now,
Boy,
I'm trying to build up the hype. I don't know.
I don't know if my
I,
voice helps the hype. It's like,
yeah, I don't know.
yeah, we have a show for you today.
Sounds kind of
It's like
sultry.
Eeyore.
Like,
I
yeah.
was thinking Eeyore.
No, we'll bring the energy. We can bring the energy.
Yes. Yes.
The holiday season is upon us, and
It
you
is.
know, as I just illustrated, my calendar got really busy right before Thanksgiving,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't anticipate that slowing down over the coming month and a half as we get into Christmas and New Year's and whatever. So, we have 5
One, two, three, four,
phrases.
five. Count them. 5.
Count them. 5 phrases for you to use this holiday season and hopefully beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So just for
I'm really
like,
selling it. I'm trying to bring the energy.
well,
5
so
holiday
it's
phrases.
5 holiday phrases. It's funny because we had a different topic planned and we just were kind of like not quite getting it to. I think it was my idea really, and we hashed it out and tossed it around. And we're like, yeah, there's something here. We just can't really zero in and kind of hack away at what we don't want and figure out exactly where we want to be. And I think we'd revisited it a couple times and just like, yeah, let's kind of keep thinking. And then Aaron, I think just last week, shot me an email and was like, hey, uh, holidays are kind of like upon us, and that's the season we're heading into, and this is the episode that will be released, before Christmas. And the holidays can just get nuts, right? And I think it's a time where it can just be stressful to begin with. But it's really easy to overextend ourselves and to feel like we have, or we're just being pulled in a bunch of different directions. And we thought, what if we just kind of talk through some phrases that you can use in a variety of common settings during this time of year, just to help you set boundaries, help you say no if you need to say no, help you kind of establish some firm boundaries with self-care and that kind of stuff during this time. So that's kind of the
Mm-hmm.
direction we're wanting to go.
Yeah. And that, by the way, that other episode that we're working on will come to light. We'll get there. It's not ready for you yet. We're
Yeah,
getting there though.
it's not ready for us
Yeah.
yet, I don't
It's
think.
half baked. Half baked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. It's just not, yeah, we just need to still work on it. So
Mm-hmm.
we're doing that. Yeah.
I have had conversations with just about every client over the past couple weeks regarding these 5 phrases we're going to hit on today. And I'm really happy to be having these conversations ahead of time because number one, it shows that these people are thinking ahead into the months ahead, the weeks ahead, and
Hmm.
anticipating the kinds of things they want to be doing for their health, for their well-being, for themselves, and recognizing that there are going to be some disruptions. So they want to try and
Hmm.
be prepared for this and sort of create a game plan in their own minds. Um,
Hmm.
and it just shows me that like as much as you might think your scenario is completely unique or strange or bothersome or whatever, yes, all of that can be true. And there's probably 1,000 other people in your circle that are going through the
Hmm.
same thing and are
Yeah.
probably, experiencing that same kind of, frustration or apprehension or worry. So
Hmm.
to me, it's just been every time these topics come up with a client, I'm like, guess what? I just had this conversation with my other client this morning, and just let
Right.
them know like there are other people that are experiencing this with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can just echo that this week, just conversations with clients. It's like, it's funny because with the profession we're in, about like taking care of ourselves and, prioritizing, exercise and making sure we're trying to eat better, that kind of stuff. It's interesting how common clients are like, okay, so like the holidays are coming. Like how do we
Dun
do
dun
this?
dun. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just, it's like the gauntlet, that they can see coming. And it's it's not uncommon for people to be approaching this time of year with just a lot of apprehension and uncertainty as to how they're going to navigate it in quote unquote healthy ways. And there's a lot that can go into that. I mean, I'll say Aaron probably agrees with me that there's a lot of things. It depends on the client and what you're going to do, as far as real specific things with navigating, certain family dynamics or certain, holidays. It's the onslaught of, meals and food and that kind of stuff. But in general, I think, we just have some phrases, some ideas, some thoughts to kind of tackle sort of these real common stressors for these times of year.
Mm-hmm. And to hopefully avoid that reaction that people get at the beginning of January to completely buckle down and overhaul their lives into this new, I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to get to the gym. I'm going to lose weight. My diet's going to change. I'm going to start or stop drinking, for the entire month of January, whatever. Hopefully, if you practice these 5 phrases, it will give you a little more flexibility in your thinking, in that you didn't go so far off the deep end throughout the holidays that you're suddenly like, I gotta reel this shit in.
Yes.
So should we get started?
Even just that,
go ahead.
I was gonna say just that it's interesting how often people kind of have that mindset of like, I'm just gonna get through this and I'm gonna survive the holidays, and then I'm going to do something about whatever, because it's like, it almost is like the holidays are this like I'm not to say this, like they're this time, it's not really about self-care, it's just about like surviving
obligation.
And hopefully hopefully I can minimize the inevitable damage that's going to be done. And if I can just kind of survive through this somehow, then I can do something about it. And we're not saying that the holidays aren't more difficult in some ways. For sure they are. There's a lot more opportunities for things to maybe pull us in directions we don't want to be pulled. But at the same time, it's the same like rules and ideas and everything still apply to August or April or whatever. And it really is a time period that you can get through without just feeling like you're just white knuckling it or just trying to somehow minimize the inevitable damage that's coming your way.
Yep. So here we go. Phrase number 1. Do you want to read it?
One. Sure. So I actually heard this phrase from some lady, Molly Galbraith, who is one of the co-founders of Girls Gone Strong.
I saw that one.
Did you? Yeah, I've talked about them before, maybe her before. But anyway, she offered this phrase as just a way to. Oftentimes, we feel like we have to justify our time, or justify saying no, like, oh, I'm too busy, or I don't have time for that. And sometimes I think we can maybe we maybe are a bit dishonest with that, like, oh, I'm too busy. I think we've talked about how we can wear busyness as a badge.
What's the phrase?
I'm getting there.
Okay. Sorry. I was like, wait, you skipped it. Don't hold out on me. What's the phrase?
I'm building up, Aaron. God, you just
right
ruined all my momentum.
I want to hear you read it in your Barry White voice. Sorry.
Anyway,
continue.
I will just read the phrase now. So the phrase is this: I'm as busy as I'd like to be right now. And I remember the first time I read that, I thought, like, wow, that is a really great way to say that. It's not I don't have time. It's not I'm far too busy. And what I like about this is it really establishes like this is about my boundary, right? As a person, it's not that I'm justifying this to anybody. It's with what I have on my plate, I don't want any more. It's not I can't take any more. I can't possibly handle anymore. It's I've got as many things going on as I'd like to, and I don't want to take on any others. And I just think that's a great way to say that. I'm as busy as I'd like to be right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you don't feel like you have to explain yourself
Mm-hmm.
to whomever is asking. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm this type of person where I'm like, oh, I've got to explain why I can't take this on, and I've got
Right.
to give some more
Yeah.
details.
Same here.
And so I think it's important to consider who's worthy of your explanation.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain people in my life that I want them to know, hey, this is really important to me and this is why I can't commit to this, or this is why I can't do it today, or whatever. But then there are lots of people that request my time or my energy or attention, and I'm like, I I don't really owe them an explanation. It doesn't
Right.
fit, is the
Yeah.
honest explanation. It just doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think that is really helpful to just turn it back to like, I'm as busy as I'd like to be right now. You don't owe them
Yeah.
an explanation.
Yeah. And I often struggle with the same thing. I'm a people pleaser. And so I
Hmm.
think if I'm saying no to something, which that's a whole other thing, right? Like just saying no, I think that's a difficult thing for me because, I want to help, but I want to make people happy. And when you tell them
Hmm.
no, that's usually not the response they were hoping to hear.
Right.
And so just establishing those boundaries and not feeling like you said, Aaron, just not feeling like you owe an explanation. Because I feel like what I wind up doing, and maybe listeners, you can relate, but um what I really am doing when I'm justifying it to someone else, I'm justifying it to myself, is what I'm really doing. And I'm like reinforcing to myself, it's okay that you're saying no because versus it's okay, I'm saying no because that's what I want to say. Right. Because that's the thing. That's what
Right.
feels best to me. That's what feels resonates to me. And I don't have to justify that to myself, most importantly. I don't have to give
Hmm.
myself reasons or convince myself, oh, it's okay that you're saying no to this. It's okay to simply say, no, I don't want any more on my plate.
Yeah. And I think this can apply to work, to social obligations, to
Mm-hmm.
family obligations, to any projects, especially things that pop up in the new year. Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
in the coming weeks when it comes to work stuff, I know people will be looking ahead like, okay, I've got to get her attention now and start planning things in January, February, and beyond. And it might not be the right time for you to entertain that sort of
Mm-hmm.
down the road vision. And so I think this is, remember, you're the only person who suffers if you overbook yourself.
Right.
If your calendar becomes completely this like green-eyed monster that you can't control, and it's
Mm-hmm.
loaded with stuff that you are not interested in doing and doesn't really bring your best self forward in whatever capacity, you're the one who suffers,
Yep.
and subsequently maybe people you're working with, maybe your family, maybe your friends, there's a lot of like cascading effects to this. So
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a really good, this starting with this one, like set your boundaries, own it, and
Yeah.
just really practice that. See what it feels like
Mm-hmm.
to use that phrase. I'm as busy as I'd like to be right now.
Yeah.
Period.
Period. End of story. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So phrase 2,
Phrase two.
is Barry going to read it or do you want me to? I'll read
Do you want
it.
me to? Well, now I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble if I do it the
No.
wrong time. I'm just scared, Aaron.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared of me. Um, we're far beyond being scared of each other, Michael. I think.
Uh,
So, phrase 2, I've got some important self-care planned. And this phrase, I put it in kind of a generic fashion because
mhm,
I think you could say a lot of things. Nope, I've got some trail time planned for
mhm,
myself. Nope, I've got some couch time planned. Nope, I would like to go to bed early.
mhm,
Nope, I would like to sleep in a bit later. Like whatever it is, whatever your self
mhm,
care is, you can fill in the blank. But this kind of goes along with number one, but I think it's distinctly different because number
right,
one indicates you're already like busy. I've got too many obligations, whatever. This one is simply saying I'm putting myself first.
right.
And that is super hard for a lot of us to do.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, I think we can feel that kind of guilt of like putting ourselves over not even over others, but over a different situation or something that may feel like an obligation, which, I mean, let's be honest, like I think doing things out of obligation is usually a pretty bad reason to do something, if that's the only reason, because we feel like we have to. But I think what I like about this one is it's one of the things I hear from clients a lot around this time of year is how difficult it can be to prioritize self-care, because of the busyness, because, there's kids' parties and get-togethers, and there's, Christmas or holiday, pageants, and there's a bunch of stuff going on. There's family, there's travel. And it can be really easy for self-care to really slip down, the list of priorities. And I think sometimes that is okay. Sometimes maybe we do a little bit less of some of that stuff. But I think if we can approach things with this idea of I'm going to establish these things as a part of my routine in whatever way I can. I'm going to make them a priority. I think we've talked about before in here, like treating self-care like a doctor's appointment, right? Like it's a priority. It's something that we have in our calendar, have in our schedule, with a time set that we're going to do it, just treat it with a high priority. And if we can approach things like this, and if we can give it that kind of priority where it's like, I'm not going to let these things be moved by other things unless it's like, an emergency or something, then it just gives us a different perspective on whatever we're trying to do, whether that's working out or making a meal, or like Aaron said, some good couch time just to like decompress, or maybe like give ourselves some respite before, we go visit family for the holidays or whatever, stressful situations coming up. It just makes that stuff a priority. And when we do that, like Erin she wrote down in her notes, saying it out loud to someone, it gives it more power. It gives it, I think we talked about that before. When we say these things externally, we bring that internal to the external, like it just exists differently, and it has a lot more power behind it. And if we can give self-care that kind of priority, we're a lot more likely to be more consistent with it through these holiday seasons.
Yeah. And think about what that might do for the person you're
Mm-hmm.
saying that to, who
Mm-hmm.
hears it. If you're saying it to a friend or a family member or a colleague or your children even, that I think in a lot of ways that could give that person permission to be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's okay to say that, like for me to set a boundary. And again, you don't have to be specific. I offered up some specific examples of things you could also say,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have to disclose the reason. You could just be like, no, I've got my plans already, whatever. But I think this is, like you said, Michael, this is like the number one thing we hear from people around this time of
Uh-huh.
year is that I haven't prioritized self-care. I'm not taking care of myself. And that's ultimately what leads people, I think, to come see us. Is it's
Mm-hmm.
not that they don't know they should, be nourishing their body with different foods, or they should be working out, moving their body regularly every day. It's that they've kind of lost track of that, and they aren't sure how it fits into their lives. And so
Yeah.
setting this boundary and saying like, no, I'm a priority, really sets the stage. And when people start owning that and using that language, like
Mm-hmm.
especially self-care, I think self-care is just like, it sounds like this, you know, I don't know, this superfluous kind of thing. Like, it's not necessary. Like, oh, that's extra. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a luxury if you have time for
Mm-hmm.
self care, when really it needs to be a priority for us. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
need to get used to saying, like, no, my, this is my time. And it's important for
Yeah.
me to have my time.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, let's let's say the holidays are busier, more stressful, right? Like I think that's for most of us, that's the case. So if we're entering into a season where stress is typically higher, time has more demands on it, right? There's more going on. We're going to be in situations that maybe are trickier. And people talk all the time about like visiting family and that kind of stuff, how difficult it can be. You've got to face some relationships that maybe you've been able to avoid all year long, that kind of thing, then doesn't it seem that prioritizing taking care of you in this time that has potential to be really stressful and really crazy should be a really important thing? Because if we can practice self-care during this time, then we're going to manage all of those things a lot better, right? Like, I mean, imagine flying home to a stressful situation for a week with your family, and the 3 weeks prior have just been like nuts, and you haven't taken time for yourself, and you haven't, just sat with yourself for a minute. You haven't moved your body. You haven't eaten any kind of fruits or, like it's been bananas. And then you go home into a very stressful situation. And it's like, where are you at just internally before you ever even like step into your parents' home or your sister's home or whatever, like you're already like in a stressful, tumultuous kind of place. And so I think it can be easy when things get busy and things get stressful to let self-care slide. But I think during those times it becomes, even more critical so that we can manage things in a healthy way. We can manage those stressors in healthy ways because we've taken the time to make sure that we've taken care of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, I'm just going to say that you are just as important as anyone else in your life, probably more important. So you deserve to show up for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Phrase
Number 3.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm just as much fun stone sober. That wasn't the phrase. I'm just saying that.
That's the phrase. It's
Just letting you
better when
guys
you
know.
say it because
Trust me.
because you do sound so serious and like you sound like half asleep. So
Like half sober.
like maybe you're not quite sober. Yeah. I mean, we can crack jokes around it, but the honest truth is we have kind of this twisted societal expectation around alcohol and engaging in drinking. It's like you have to have alcoholism or be pregnant to have an out. Otherwise, you're just being a buzzkill and you're, what's wrong with you or something. Or maybe like religious beliefs if you've, never drank. I have encountered this in my own life and I've gotten way past it. Like I really do not give, two hoots about anybody who thinks anything about my drinking anymore. But
two hoots.
I was really
there were a
reaching.
lot of things. I thought you were going to finish that sentence with a few other things. I did not think it was going to be two hoots.
F's either, but two hoots was I'm trying to keep it PG.
Maybe one hoot, but not two.
Even though I already swore once today. It's a good thing we don't have a swear jar because
you don't need to edit yourself here. What's going on? Where do you think you are?
Yeah. I have had this conversation with a lot of clients. Again, the whole putting boundaries on alcohol. In fact, I had a consult with a new client just a couple weeks ago, and this person was like, well, I'm going away for the weekend, so I know that it's going to get out of hand and there's going to be a lot of drinking. This was right after that client had just expressed to me that they wanted to, kind of back off and kind of moderate their drinking a little bit. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You just told me you wanted to go this direction. And yet you're telling me next weekend is going to be, off the rails. So what, how do you reconcile that? And they kind of were like, well, that's just the way, social pressure and just everybody else. I know. But we had to have that conversation around like, well, how can you do what you want to do for yourself in that situation and not feel like you have to engage in what everybody else is choosing to do for their bodies and their health? It can be alcohol is a tricky one. I don't know why.
Yeah, it is. Well, and you can easily feel like some sort of like social pariah, right? Like if you're not
Oh yeah.
like drinking, but also like if you're around, coworkers or whatever who are drinking and you're not, it's not as much fun to be around people who are drinking if you're not drinking a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like it could be a little more
I would
tolerable.
argue, that I can become disinhibited pretty easily. If
Okay.
I'm around if I'm around people that are loosening up and drinking and having a good time and getting
Yeah.
loud, I can join right in stone sober. In fact, I think I might have shared this story on a previous episode, but I'll share it again. When I
Mhm.
was in grad school and I was living down here in Boise, I was living with family that lived, you know, I don't know. It was probably a good like 20 to 30-minute drive, depending on traffic, away from downtown. So I don't know, 8 miles or whatever outside the
Mm.
downtown area. And I was broke and I couldn't afford like cab rides to get, back home after partying. I also cared about like my health and fitness and wanting
Mm.
to like stay in shape, get up and work out the next day. But I wanted to have like the social life. And so I would go to the bar with these friends and I'd buy a beer and I'd kind of nurse that beer, drink it until it was gone. And then I would take the bottle and go fill it up with water in the bathroom and come back to the dance floor. So I was literally drinking water for like 3 hours, dancing and just having a great time. Nope, I'm good. And it cured everything. I didn't feel like crap the next morning. I got to have fun with my friends. I saved money. Like it was it was like genius. And I know that might not
Uh,
work for everybody, but trust me that if you're around a bunch of people that are drinking, they are not going to really notice if you're
they're not
drinking or
paying
not. Like
attention. Yeah.
you just let loose and have fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I
Staying
also wanted to
hydrated.
share, I know, just I was nice and hydrated. I could get up and run the next morning. I was fine. I wanted to share a post that our friend Pratik Patel shared last week. So Pratik is a friend of the podcast. When did we interview him? Was it in 2020 or
Boy.
2021?
Oh, it was fairly early on.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he
I'm gonna
posted,
say, go ahead. I'm gonna look just for
um,
curiosity's sake.
he posted just recently this week about how he went a year without drinking. And if you want to check out the post, he is Pratik X Patel, all one word on Instagram. So it's PratikXPatel. And he goes on to explain, like, I've got nothing against drinking. I did this because I wanted to, see if this impacted my health, my HRV, which is heart rate variability. Have you heard much about that or gotten into heart rate variability reading or
Mm-mm.
anything?
Mm-mm.
It's a pretty cool metric, not to like go on a tangent here, but just to say it is looking at the variability between like your resting heart rate and your heart rate when you're like working out or active throughout the day. And the idea is if there's a higher variability, like your resting heart rate is lower and then you can get that heart rate up higher when you're working out or active, then that shows you that you're well recovered, your body is in low stress, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
then when that heart rate variability goes down, meaning your resting heart rate is higher and you can't quite push as hard when you're working out, that shows that you're under stress, your body needs to recover, it hasn't slept well. Anyway, alcohol has been shown to be one of the primary drivers for low HRV.
Mm-hmm.
So just to share that, because Pratik he mentions that in his post, but he goes on to say, like, it wasn't that hard for him. He didn't notice huge differences in certain aspects. I think he said like an HRV, he didn't even notice a difference. Oh, he says he still had shitty HRV and sleep. So, he's got other things to deal with, but he said dating was really hard. So he's obviously like single and in the dating scene. I imagine that would be really
Yeah,
tough
I can
to
see
try
that.
and like you said, sometimes you're seen as this social pariah, like to be
Mm-hmm.
all righteous, like I don't drink. But basically he said that people can be Oh, he says there's an unnecessary negative stigma placed upon people that don't drink. Choosing not to drink isn't weird. Continually getting effed up is. And I think that was the part that struck me, because I'm like, you're right. There's this really odd stigma about people who choose not to drink. And I mean, anybody who's listening to this knows, like, I like beer, wine, whatever, cocktails. Like, I have nothing against drinking. I have my own, my own boundaries around that and what I believe, but I have zero judgment on, like, if somebody chooses to drink or not. I just find it really bizarre that socially we have this inordinate amount of pressure to engage in the same behaviors everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of disturbing.
It is a weird relationship we have with alcohol, in that and you're right, it's like if you choose to not drink at a party or get together or whatever, there is this like, what's wrong with you? Like, why?
Yeah.
What's your problem? It is the sort of default, I think, for in most, not most situations, but in a lot of get-togethers or parties, it is kind of the default, right? Let's have a drink. um, so it's just kind of interesting how that works out, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and how strange it can be to not drink, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's very interesting.
Well, and I think that's why, like, you can crack a joke, make light of it.
Hmm.
Like this phrase, trust me, I'm just as much fun stone sober. Like, just, crack a joke, let it ride, and move on.
Hmm.
And I will also ask our listeners who find themselves in that situation where they say, where they're at a party or something and their friend is like, no, I'm, not tonight, or that's enough for me, or whatever. Be supportive of that. Like, be a good friend,
Hmm.
show them that it does not matter how much they drink or if they drink in your presence, and just be a very gracious person,
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah.
So,
Plus, I mean, let's be honest. Like, again, if we're talking about a stressful time of year, like I have zero issues with drinking either. I love whiskey. I love beer. I mean, I enjoy it, but it's an additional stressor into an already stressful time,
yeah.
right? You don't sleep as well. You don't recover as well. It does, just even if it's in small ways, it decreases all of your abilities to handle whatever you need to handle. And so might be a good time of year to maybe pull back, so that again you can be managing the things that you need to manage to handle stressful situations at times of year.
Yep. Love it.
All right, number 4.
Yeah.
Lay it on us.
Would you be up for a walking meeting?
Sure.
Let's
See how
go.
easy that was, guys?
Look, done. Okay, phrase 5. No,
Phrase
I'm just
5.
kidding. So, okay, I get it. It's winter and I live in
Hmm.
Idaho, y'all. So it's not like we have great weather for walking or anything.
Hmm.
Um, However, there tends to be this belief that, first of all meetings that are productive need to be like sat down at a desk or
Hmm.
on Zoom or something like that, and they can't be incorporating some kind of like outdoor time, physical movement, something that's good for your health as well.
Hmm.
And I just think the more I offer that up to people, it it seems to be well received by the person I'm meeting with. Like, hey, would you like
Hmm.
to go for a walk instead? Most people are down with that. Like, hey, that's a great idea, because it actually gives me permission to go, like, move my body, get outside, do
Hmm.
something else. And you might be opening the door for someone else to fit in their self-care and their
Hmm.
wellness on your time, which is a pretty cool thing you can do.
Yeah. And I think this goes for, meetings, to even just get-togethers. Like, hey, you want to grab coffee? How about if we grab coffee and we go for a walk? We
Yep.
go to the park and we walk around where we have our coffee, so that you're not saying no to the social thing, but you're including that self-care and those feel-good type activities, in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, reap the benefits of getting some fresh air this time of year too.
Right?
It's,
Sunshine. I mean,
yeah.
gosh. In fact, I was just talking with a client today. He was like, "Yeah, I can feel like my seasonal affective disorder coming."
Mm,
He's like, "There's less sun, less warmth." He's like, "Yeah, I feel it coming on." And
yeah.
I think that, I think even if people don't like aren't severely impacted by that, I think most of us are, at least to a degree.
Yeah, I
I
am
mean,
for sure.
when we just don't have as much movement and we're not outside as much, like um it just takes a toll. I mean, we get less vitamin D, we get less fresh air, we get less, activity in our body. And geez, I always notice, like in the spring, those first kind of like warmer days where the sun comes
Yeah.
out, and it's just like I feel like 10 times better than I
Yeah.
realized I felt. Like I didn't know
Yeah.
how like bummed out I was feeling, and just like,
Hmm.
ugh. So if you can take advantage of those opportunities and just make the choice to get outside and do what you can to mitigate a lot of that stuff, it's going to be really helpful.
Yeah. And if you live somewhere that has snow, I think going for a walk in this gently falling snow can just be really magical too. So,
Oh yeah.
embrace the season too. Like
Hmm.
don't just be waiting for that perfect sunny day. Like make it
Yeah.
happen and bundle
Make
up
it
and
happen, Captain.
you'll be good. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Number 5.
Number 5.
I'm going to read this one. You ready?
Yep.
There it was. Did you guys get it?
Very good, Michael.
I'll do it again.
Very
Ready?
good.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's
I
don't
love
say
it.
anything at all. You don't you don't have to respond to every request or demand or text or email or phone call. You don't have to. It's okay to wait. You can put it off if you need to. You just because someone has asked for your attention and your time does not mean you have to give it to
Amen.
them.
And I
Amen.
I read an article recently. I should have been more prepared. Sorry, I dropped the ball.
You
That
telling me
talk
that is ironic. Yeah, you really should have, Aaron. I didn't just like fly in here last minute, like, all right, here we go.
I read an article that talked about it had like some statistics on our expectation to be on demand at all times. And it
Mm,
started with the smartphone revolution, right? So when we can actually
mhm,
have email at our fingertips, when we can actually be reached by a text message or something,
mhm,
whenever, and we have access to all this information basically in our pockets. And we now have this culture and this whole generation who has this expectation that you have to be engaged
right.
all the time. And when I
All the
say
frickin' time.
engaged, I don't mean engaged with like your surroundings, the people in the room with you, your spouse, your family that's sitting there at the table with you. I mean engaged with like so many tentacles out into the world.
Everyone. Yeah.
Social media, text messages, like how invasive can people be in your life now?
Hmm.
So I had to learn the hard way when it came to emails. This was something that I adopted a few years ago. Well, before I really started working for myself full time, was that I check emails when I'm sitting at my desk and I'm in the mode to answer emails and check emails. And it has really changed how invasive I let that email culture get
Hmm.
into my life when I'm not here in my workspace sitting here ready to answer. And there are some
Hmm.
things that I get, like in the afternoon on one day and I'm like this can wait until tomorrow. I'm not even going to open that email. I'm going to wait and
Hmm.
give a response when I'm ready to give a response. And I think
Hmm.
that's another, the whole theme today has been boundaries. That's another boundary you can set is just pause and don't reply right away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think when you can, I mean, if it's such a slippery slope, right? Like if
Mhm.
you begin to allow, work or even, extended family or stuff into places that you are trying to protect, like time with your immediate family or whatever. Like it just all of a sudden then it's social media and it's these requests here, and it can so easily become like, I'm trying to like wear all the hats at once, of like husband and dad and, client and friend and, family member and, I mean, all these things. And I think the more we do that, the less we do any of those really well, because you really do have to, I mean, you're in a different mode when you're working than when you're hanging out with Matt, right? You're in a different
Mm-hmm.
mode when you're hanging out with friends and when you're with family. And when you're trying to do all of these roles, like flip back and forth, all the time, I think it becomes exhausting,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to be this, but you're trying to be that, and you can't be this and be that at the same time. And, none of your attention is 100% anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that establishing those firm boundaries can be so helpful, just energetically, right? Like just as far as like how much time you spend trying to be those things, because when we're flipping back and forth, at least for me, like that just, it gets
Yeah.
exhausting.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, sorry kids, I got to go be trainer dad, Mike now, and then I got to be this, and then, and it's just like I'm not doing any of them really well.
Right. Because your brain
Yeah.
is halfway. It's like you've got one foot in this
Mm-hmm.
thing, and then you've got like your
Mm-hmm.
brain is sort of over here remembering this text that you just sent to this
Mm-hmm.
person. And yeah, it doesn't, yeah, it keeps us, it takes us out of the present, even
Mm-hmm.
when you're like, you have to be present for whatever task you're doing or trying to engage
Mm-hmm.
in. Yeah, it's hanging with
Yeah.
you. And I think this is also important for the person who is reaching out to somebody expecting a response right away. I mean, this
Right.
happens to me too. Like I'll text a friend or something and be like, it's been like 4 hours. Why hasn't she gotten back to me or whatever? Well,
Yeah.
sometimes we create stories in our minds about why that
Mm-hmm.
person isn't getting back to you. And a lot of times those stories aren't the nicest stories for us to
Mm-hmm.
create in our minds.
Yeah, we never
So,
pick the best case scenario there, do we?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh,
we're
they hate
never
me now.
right. Right. There's assumptions, there's kind of
Mm-hmm.
so I think if you have found yourself, kind of beholden to that expectation that, oh, well, I know they're online. I can see their little green dot that they're on, this app right
Yeah.
now. Why aren't they answering me? Just hit pause for a second and show some grace and recognize
Mm-hmm.
that this person is maybe practicing this very phrase
Mm-hmm.
or principle of
Yep.
boundaries. So just
Yeah.
allow that to just be, and you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
have any kind of explanation or I mean, if you tell yourself a story at all, let it be, oh, they just need to pause for a second. Like
Yeah.
they'll answer me when they're ready. And I
Yep.
think that can help with some of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um I had one more thought on this one. Speaking of stressful situations, holidays, family gatherings, social gatherings, you don't have to respond to every question
Mm-hmm.
or maybe inflammatory comment or anything that is trying to like instigate something. I know we
Mm-hmm.
all we all have those situations, everyone,
Mm-hmm.
so I get it, but you don't have to respond or answer to all of that stuff. You
Yeah.
can, not say anything at all. You could even say, like, I'm going to need a little time to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just let it be. You don't have to have an answer right away.
Yep. 100%. So there you have it. There are
There it
5
is.
phrases for you. Yeah, to help you navigate these holiday seasons and hopefully keep some good and healthy boundaries and put you at the center of where you put your energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good luck with them. We hope you use them.
Yeah. Let us know if you
I'm,
use them. Let us know how they work for you. We'd love to hear that.
yeah. Do you have a meaning in the mundane to share?
I do. Um, I think it was last week. I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, I was just talking to Sophie and we weren't doing anything like, I don't know, we were just like kind of talking. And she goes, "You're a good dad." And I said, "Really? You
Oh,
think so?" And she goes, "Yeah, you're a really good dad." I was like, oh. It's like, you have no idea how much that means to me. And then she goes, and you're going to be a really good grandpa when I have kids. I was like, okay. Excuse me for a minute while I
thank
go
you, I
bawl my
guess.
eyes out. Like,
Jeez.
it's like, that's like the best thing you could tell me is like, you're going to be she's thinking about like, when I have kids, you're going to be a great grandpa. It's like,
Oh,
thank you so much. It's the best
oh,
thing.
she's honest and she has good judgment. Good girl,
Yeah,
Sophie.
it was a pretty awesome little moment, just
That's
completely out of
sweet.
nowhere. Yeah, it totally caught me off guard. Yeah, it
That's
was great.
cute. Got something in
Yeah,
your eye there?
a little it. Yeah.
Um, so mine is Matt bought me a tea kettle
Oh.
a few weeks ago, like
Mm-hmm.
out of the blue. I mean, we I guess we kind of talk about, if they're like, I don't know, random ads we get on Instagram or something, and we'll be like, oh, that's really
Mm,
nice, oh yeah, I really like that or whatever. But he just bought me a tea kettle like out of the blue. Really bizarre because he doesn't drink tea. We
yeah.
don't do pour over coffee. We don't,
Mm,
but it has a little thermometer gauge on top and everything. It has the gooseneck spout. It's very stylish looking. And I just find myself every time, because I'm drinking a lot of tea now that it's like we're in the Boise tundra all of a sudden where there's like
right.
no sun and it's cold as hell. And every time I make a cup of tea now, I just think of Matt. And I just realized the other day, like, I just get that, like, almost kind of visceral connection to, I've
Hmm.
attached this feeling of like closeness with Matt with this little inanimate object that I use multiple times a day. And
Yeah,
it's just really cute that I have this reminder and attachment to him from something that he, is not even he got it because he knows I would appreciate it
yeah.
and use it and like it. And that's just a really sweet reminder.
That's
So
awesome.
that's
Good
mine.
job, Matt.
Good job, Matt. He doesn't listen to the podcast, so we don't
Oh,
have to
bad job,
congratulate him.
Matt.
Just kidding. We don't like you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We do hope these are helpful, and like I said, we would love to hear if you find opportunities to use them and let us know how they work for you.
Yeah. Thanks. Happy holidays.